Good morning, everyone. How are you this beautiful day that the Lord has made? I'm Karen Jane Casey on the podcast Turn to God with Carin. And every Friday, our episodes are Carin's Book Corner. This is where I share a little bit about books I've written, maybe a backstory, maybe I read a little bit, or I share about books that other authors have written. Well, today, it's always to whet your interest in the books. Today, before I get into the book, let me share with you about my favorite nonprofit, Yeshuas House, located in Petersburg. It is a faith-based nonprofit safe haven for women and their children coming from domestic violence and financial hardship. So, I was on the board of directors for Yeshuas House for about 4.5 years, and now I'm on the advisory committee. And I can say that the founder, Angelabbrown, and her husband, Moses Brown, are very diligent in their care and the seriousness of helping these women. So they have this story. Mary tells her story. And it's about the true founder of Yeshuas House. And so it's by Mary Faletic Bollman. Well, you might, and I would just want to let you know that all the funding for purchases of this book, which you can find on Amazon.com or through their website, all the funds go to Yeshuas House, which is tax deductible. So I'm going to read the back blurb, which is what I typically do, and then just maybe cover a few pages within the book. I highly recommend it, and I was especially enthralled with it because it's talking about a dysfunctional home and various degrees of violence within it, and how these children survived. Well, anyway, let me get to the blurb of it. September 7th, 1917, Indianapolis. The 5 Faletic children were dressed and ready for their first day of school in Indianapolis. None remembered why their father began to beat their mother. Neighbors knew it was a frequent occurrence. This time, Angela Faletic, age 33, was laying to rest in a casket with her stillborn son. Daughter Mary was 6 years old and lived the longest, to age 93. Years later, we learned that many in the Hughesville community were surprised that any of those children survived. We invite you to join us in rejoicing through these poignant, sometimes hilarious, and sometimes heartbreaking stories. And we invite you to rejoice with Mary Faletic Bollman, the true founder of Yeshuas House. If housing had been available for Angela Faletic and her 5 children, their stories could have been quite different. Yeshuas House teaches biblical principles as the basis for healthy relationships designed for women recovering from abuse and in financial transition. Single women and mothers with children may stay up to 18 months. And then here are 2 reviews, and you want to hear that before you get into the book. Mary Tells Her Story is a moving story of resilience and generosity, born of hardship and concern for others. The family has taken a painful past and turned it into a bright future for others. Her family has captured Mary's voice and story here to share their inspirational tale of what a change we can make in the world. And that review was by Aaron Nunnally, M.A., Professor of English. Another really good review it goes like this. It's an art to tell stories from your life so that we feel like we were right there with the storyteller. Reading Mary's poignant story of her life from childhood to old age told is a conversational and straightforward style, and grace will capture you as you journey in the ultimate legacy left by this extraordinary woman. That was by Yolanda Gray, life coach, speaker, and author. And again, I said, purchases of this book funds Yeshuas House. And, they depend on, because it's a nonprofit, they depend on donations to function and help these women. So I'm going to read a little bit more into it. They base the storyline on two specific scriptures. Proverbs 22:1. A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver and gold. And this one we all know, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future. So let's go to the inspiration. Angela Faletic was 7 months pregnant when she was last beaten. This was her 8th pregnancy in 9 years. Her young son, as usual, could not stop the violence. The beating caused the death of her and her infant boy. The murderer was her husband. Angela's 5 children, ages 2, 4, 6, 8, and 9, never again lived together as a family. Relatives, friends, and neighbors often took the least care of them or used them as child labor. None of them were kept long enough to be cherished. No secure, stable home for them. Mary was the 6-year-old who grew in a tender-hearted young woman. She married a gentleman who took her to live in the country, where she cared for fallen baby birds, orphaned rabbits, and farm animals. She fed strays who wandered into her yard and named them if they strayed. She raised 4 children with love and welcomed their spouses into her family circle. She enjoyed her grandchildren and great-grands. Always generous, she became more so as she aged. Family was given great treasures from her years of receiving gifts. Often, the gifts were offered to the original giver. Visitors left with something. At the door, she would say, "What can I give you?" Usually it was food, homemade or store-bought. Mary's widowhood began too early. She had lived with her husband for 50 years and without him for 22. Time to go, so she did. Afterwards, her younger son and 2 daughters discovered how well her older son had managed her wealth. Plenty to divide by 4. Daughter Angela, a lifelong tender heart herself, was inspired to use her share for a God-given cause. She began with her gentleman the ministry of love and refuge, Yeshuas House. Grandmother Angela, your tragic end in 1917 had bright beginnings in 2013. We honor you and your little daughter Mary, who lived a life of giving all her days. We honor your namesake, Angela, for uplifting the name of Yeshua. We thank her for encouraging us to rejoice with each woman and child who is blessed by Yeshua's house. I say shalom. Barbara Bollman Lyles. Under his wings you will find refuge. That's in Psalm 91:4. This is so inspiring, and it brings home that God always has a good plan. Always has a good plan for those who love him. And it may have taken some time, but now Yeshua's house is founded out of that tragic family's dynamics. And I can relate to some of the stories. I mean, some of the fun things the kids did in lieu of having other friends and having toys and things. They'd throw things back and forth through windows, and they didn't have Christmas presents. Typically they would instead have fruit or nuts. And in all of it, love prevailed. Love prevailed. So and then in the book you see pictures, of the original Angela Faletic and you know, her casket was laid out so that people could, on the street pretty much, so people could walk by and pay their respects. You know, it's just really moving. And then it shows the children as they grew up. And then finally it comes to Angela and Moses Brown, who are now the founders of Yeshuas House. So I highly recommend this book. I hope that you will read it. And in the process of getting the book and reading it, you will be offering support to Yeshua's House. And I believe that the more you know about it, the more you will want to become involved in donating to Yeshua's House. Well, that's all I had to say today about that book. I believe there's going to be another one very soon. And I don't really know enough about it to talk about it, but I'm hoping that I'll have Angela on here and so I can interview her about it. Well, anyway, this is Carin Jane Casey, author, speaker, domestic violence victim advocate, and ambassador for Christ. I hope that you'll come back to Carin's Book Corner every Friday. We have new presentations the first and third Friday. And as you know, Turn to God with Carin has episodes on Monday, which is Faith and Hope Journey, where we're talking about overcoming challenges with encouragement and hope for healing. Always knowing that we can turn to God about anything. And then every Wednesday we have Sword of the Spirit, which is where we go through passages of the Word of God. So I invite you now to go to my website and please let me know your comments, your suggestions. Any feedback is always welcome. I'm always wanting to improve. And the easiest way to contact me is through my website, CarinJaneCasey.com. Go to the contact page and then you can contact me there. As you go to my website, you'll see books and blogs and podcasts that I've done. And I want to tell you now, if you have read and enjoyed any of my books, please let me know it. I want to know if you were encouraged, if it caused positive change in your life at all. And also, I'd appreciate an excellent review on Amazon. Well, thank you and God bless. Bye-bye.